Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm so excited to have a special guest with us today, Kate Nguy, because she specializes in women's health and fertility, as well as being a yoga therapist. And some of you may know that science has proven that our subconscious thoughts and beliefs about conception, about pregnancy, about birth, raising children, all of those can actually block our ability to conceive because of both conscious and subconscious fears that typically start from early childhood. And Kate works with women and with their partners to increase their fertility results through resolving those psychological barriers to really enhance the body's ability to heal and regain balance. And this is such an important topic. And I'm so grateful, Kate, that you are with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. This is very exciting.
So would you be willing to kind of start us off with how in the world did you get into this line of work?
It's actually a really interesting story because this was never the plan. Like, this isn't what I thought I would ever end up doing. I was in a corporation. I was working for an oil and gas company. I was a shareholder in that company. Like, where I am now is like completely different of where I thought I would be. But then I started to experience fertility challenges while I was in this very, high stress, very driven, high expectation job. And I loved it. I loved the people that I worked with. I loved the drive. But when my body started to fail, that was my first sign that something had to change. And so my journey is that I went through 3 ectopic pregnancies. So the first ectopic pregnancy was kind of a surprise. We weren't expecting it. And when I was in intense pain and we went into emerge, they discovered that I was about to rupture. So I had to rush into emergency surgery to remove that tube and to not rupture and to terminate that pregnancy. And so that was my first moment of going, okay, something's off. But then they told me, you know what, your other tube is fine. Your body's in good condition. Like, don't worry about this going forward. And then, so we were really surprised when the second ectopic pregnancy happened. And that was kind of like my light bulb moment of like, what is going on in my body? Something has to change. And so it was shortly after that second ectopic that I realized the amount of stress I was under. I realized that I really wasn't working in alignment with what my life's goal was. Like, I was doing something because it paid the bills. It did bring me joy. Like, I loved the people I worked with, but it wasn't like my deep heart desire. And so, my husband and I had a big talk, and I was like, I think that I need to shift things. I need to shift things in my life. I need to find like what really brings me joy and passion. And I need to do this so that my body actually starts to feel differently. Because right now I'm coming home and I'm exhausted and I'm stressed. And so I left my job. And then unfortunately, we did have a third ectopic pregnancy. And that third ectopic pregnancy is when the fertility clinics told me that my chances of having a natural pregnancy would probably never happen. And that I needed to go for surgery, remove my remaining tube, and just do IVF. That was my only option. And I remember walking out of there feeling like, that can't be it. Like, that really can't be it. And so that's when my healing journey changed. And that's when my whole life changed at that moment of me going, okay, so what do I need to do? And I was not someone who had ever tried acupuncture before. I had never seen a naturopathic doctor. Like, this was all very new to me. But I think when our body gives us this big message that something's off, and we really like feel it in our body, we know when we need to make change. And so I was willing to try anything. And I did. I started seeing an acupuncturist. I went for visceral manipulation, which is organ massage, right? I thought, maybe that will help release some tension in my fallopian tubes. I really did anything and everything that was humanly possible from an alternative perspective to see if I could change what the conventional medical world was telling me about my body. And I did. I ended up getting successfully pregnant shortly after that third ectopic, and I have 3 children. And I always say that this is the really cool thing is that there was a part after that third ectopic pregnancy where someone had told me about visualization practices, about, starting to create a story in your mind, and then just meditating with that story and just making it feel like it's part of your journey. And so that's what I did. This maybe sound a little out there and silly. And I don't know if this is what the catalyst was for me, but honestly, it made me feel good. It made me feel like I was in control and that I had power of my journey. And that, I think, was the most important thing, because when we're on the fertility journey, we feel so disempowered. And so finding something that made you feel empowered, that you had a little bit of control over where you were going in your healing journey, was really important for me. And so my little visualization was, I had these little tiny men in full like white suits going into my tube and chipping away. And this was like, it wasn't anything big. Everyone's like, how long did you do this? And it's like, some days it was 30 seconds because that's all I could sit for. And other days it was 10 minutes. And it just was like a meditation practice with this visualization of imagining that I was cleaning that tube out, that I was doing it. And I did this for about 6 weeks, and I did it right up until the day of a test that I had to do, which was an HSG, which is where they put dye in through your uterus and your tubes to see where the blockages are. And when they did that, there was no blockage, there was no scar tissue, there was no swelling. And so this is the power of the mind sometimes. This is how, was it my visualization? Who knows? Was it because I felt empowered in my body and I felt like I can make a change? Probably. So I always tell the clients that I work with, it's not so much about what tool you choose. It's whatever tool makes you feel like you have a little bit of power in your journey, that you feel empowered, that you feel like you can show up for yourself and do that. And that's what I could do. That's something that felt like it resonated with me. So.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing this. I think a lot of the people listening, the women that are going through this, their partners that are, struggling with this and wanting to support. And it's something that's probably more common than many of us even know about. And I imagine a lot of those folks are really resonating with how you felt, that kind of lack of empowerment, the lack of agency over what's going on with your body. And then kind of, I imagine are feeling hope now as a result of you sharing your story. And we absolutely know from research that even visualization, for example, works. It creates that neural pathways, right, for us to build more expectation, less doubt that it is in fact possible. So can you share a little bit more about the connection between the mind and the body, specifically when it comes to fertility?
For sure. How we feel about our fertility journey really does affect the outcomes of our fertility journey. So if we are constantly feeling broken, without options, and like struggling for that last resort, that doesn't really feel good in our body, right? Like even just thinking about that, it almost makes you want to tighten your jaw. You probably tighten your visceral body a bit. Your shoulders might go up. So you're already creating rigidness in the body. And so when we're really locked down in the sense of hopelessness, or we're really caught up in statistics, or when we're really caught up in a lot of medical diagnoses, it can really feel disempowering. It can really feel like it's actually adding more stress to the system, right? And so this is where finding these mindset tools where we can start to, even if it's just us, like this is where I say, like, it doesn't matter if science has proven this, placebo effect has been proven through science to work, right? And so if it makes you feel good, that's all you need. And so there's little tools. And so, when I always have like at least one or two clients that come to me and they're a little skeptical about this mindset thing and how it's going to change. And I always refer back to this. It's my favorite book by Dr. Rick Hansen. And so if you haven't read it, you really need to. It's called Hardwiring Happiness. And so he talks about in there about how we have this negative bias that's built into us naturally. It exists, it's there. And so it's what we needed to learn how to survive, right? Like when we were being chased by saber-toothed tigers, or when we were eating like berries that might kill us, we needed to remember those negative experiences so that we didn't repeat them. But this is not helpful when it comes to fertility. That negative bias can be our biggest holdup, our biggest like roadblock in our fertility journey. And so what we need to do is rewrite that story to create a different experience in the mind. And when we do that, we have the power to build new pathways in our brain. We have the ability to recreate new neural matter that was going to shift that perspective and change our experience. And the one thing I love about Dr. Rick Hansen is his technique is like 20 seconds. Like it's not something big. It's not like this deep meditation practice. And so I'll just really quickly talk about his little system that he has because it's so simple. And so all he says is that when you're in this negative experience, when you're spiraling negative, all you have to do is just close your eyes and start to like bring a thought process into your mind that really embodies like empowerment or joy or love, right? And so like this could be like just imagining your partner sitting there going, okay, I'm on the couch with my partner and just feeling that love. And then the next step to that is to start to really amplify that, to embody it. So starting to feel that like in your heart space and then starting to feel it like, okay, this feeling that I have in my head, this thought is actually starting to radiate into my tissues. And then to amplify that, to feel that same feeling or vibration start to spread throughout your body, right? And then just sit with that for like 10, 20 seconds and then come out of it. And by that simple task, you've already started to override that negative bias and to have a different experience in your body, which is telling your body it has the potential to heal.
Oh, I'm so glad that you shared that. And it's interesting because his research or his technique directly correlates with the research out of the Institute of Heart Math. Just these past couple of days, I was training groups of CEOs here in the Phoenix area on resilience. And I always start out the session with how you're all feeling. And, people would say, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, I've got a lot on my plate. And then we do a quick coherence technique, which is very similar, only it starts with focusing the attention in the area of the heart, kind of breathing slowly and deeply, kind of in a comfortable rhythmic way, and then activating a positive regenerative feeling, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like describing. And then, of course, we can radiate that, right, to every cell in our body, radiate it out to others. And we know without a doubt that absolutely does expand this force field around our body, the electromagnetic field that feeds the field with love. And it does have an effect on our world. And of course, on our body, we have a lot of research. So it's so cool that you're kind of sharing that, because I think what we're talking about today, yes, we're zooming in on fertility and how the mind influences our ability to conceive and what we can do to get even better results. And this is applicable to anyone that is looking to feel better, whether it's in their body or emotionally, even if there's no, any issue in the body directly, right? So thank you for kind of bringing that to us. And so what can people do if they recognize, that they're struggling to conceive, and maybe they've been told that, it's an unexplained infertility, right? There's nothing specifically wrong, right? There's no medical reason, maybe the perfectly good eggs, clear tubes, healthy womb, and so on, right? All the right hormones. What, if anything, can they do?
There's two things that I would always suggest. The first is that remembering that our fertility journey is very specific to ourselves, right? So what worked for me, some of it may work for somebody else, but that whole recipe may not work for somebody else. And so I always say, be really curious about the body, be really curious about how you feel, and then start to make your own recipe. And the easiest analogy I've ever come up with or metaphor is making a soup, right? Like you always start with a base of water and stock, and then you throw in what you like. And so try different things, try acupuncture, try massage, try whatever kind of feeds your soul. And even if you're like, oh, I don't know about this, try it. And if you walk out going, wow, I feel differently, then that's part of your soup. If you walk out and go, that was a little not in my playing field, I don't know if that really worked, then that doesn't go in your soup pot, right? So you make your own recipe. And it's the more stuff that you do that makes you feel nourished, that makes you feel connected, that makes you feel empowered, you're on your healing journey already. So that is what I always say first is, you have to figure out your own recipe and you have to just be curious, try things, right? I teach from a movement perspective of how we can move the body, how we can use breath, how we can use mindset and meditation to create transformation. But that's only like one set of tools. There's so many other things out there. And the problem is that with alternative medicine, there isn't a lot of research of like, how does it really affect, or the statistics. It's really hard for us to get this into like statistic mode for people to really feel confident in it. So that's why I say like, this is where it just becomes curiosity. If it might work, why not try it once? And if it doesn't, then it didn't work. But the second tool that I always like to do with my clients, especially around mindset, because when people come in, a lot of times they are feeling very broken. They're feeling very disconnected to their body. And, they come to me because everything else they've tried has failed. Everything else that they've researched on Dr. Google has not worked. And so they come to me because they are so disconnected from their body. So the first thing we have to do is get them reconnected to their body. We need them to start to understand and to see how they're feeling in their body, because we can't fix something when we don't know how it feels or we don't know what it is. And so I always say, conventional medicine diagnoses are super important because these tests or these diagnoses give us a baseline. They allow us to say, okay, this is what we have found that could be contributing factors. But now what we're going to do is we're going to dig a little bit deeper and see if we can find like some really deep, maybe root causes, so that we can create healing around that. So the story that we're told by conventional medicine isn't our story. That is just like little information tidbits. And so we can take that, but now we have to explore how that makes us feel. We have to explore, what kind of imbalances is it creating in our body, or what haven't we identified with that imbalance yet? And so this is where I always call it the art of rewriting your fertility story. So what I often do with my clients, both if I'm working with women, I'll work with them. Often, most of my clientele are women because they gravitate to this more so. But I also have women that come to me because it is a male unexplained or male issue. And so they're always like, well, I'm here, but I don't really know what to do or how to help. And this is where I work with couples, or I work with the partner a bit more of it's not just a one person. And, they say that in the fertility world, 40% is female issue, 40% is male issue, and 20% is we don't know. So it just goes to show that fertility really is a group event. Like it is two people coming together to create life. So it's not about just exploring one person's imbalance. It's about how can we both explore our stories, so that way we can create healing in both of our bodies and then really create healing as a couple on this journey. Because even if, let's say it's male issue, if we're sitting here and not sure what to do, we're also feeling disempowered as well. So how can we really amplify our egg quality so that way we can show up for the sperm, right? Like it is a two-part, it's not one part, right? So the art of rewriting your fertility, because I'm pretty sure you're probably like, okay, get to the art here.
I'm loving this. Every word you're saying absolutely resonates, because I see this, Kate, in my work, and I don't specialize in fertility. I, see this same concept of empowerment and, and the impact of stress, right? On our ability to expect what we want in our life, right? Because we might not be conscious of it, but when we're holding on to stress, or when we're disempowered in some way, or we resist the change at an unconscious level. Clearly we want it, we're very clear on what we want, but the body is resisting it in some way, and this is why we don't get the results that we want or as quickly as we want. So I'm 100% with you. So thank you for taking the time to explain.
No problem. And so I'll just share that the art of rewriting your fertility story, even though we're making it around the fertility lens, honestly, you can use this for anything that's going on in your life, right? Like whether it's stress at work that you're just like, I really wish I wasn't so stressed out, or I feel like I'm exhausted, I have adrenal fatigue, whatever the case might be, you could use this for this, right? Like I do it under the fertility lens, but like with what you just said, if this resonates with you, do this for any kind of imbalance in your life. You just don't have to do it with the fertility mindset. And so I will share that I'll go through the steps of what I'm talking about here, but just know that this is something that takes a little bit of time. So come back to this video or this podcast and take the time to, really sit with it, pause, do a little bit of it's kind of like a journaling exercise, but with a little bit of art in it. So take the time to like really explore this and then continue on. So know that you don't have to do this right now. Don't get up and run for your piece of paper and pen. You can revisit this later because I'm just going to go through the steps with you. But the main thing, the first thing that we always want to do, and I'm someone who's very visual. So I always like to, well, I used to do with my clients that we actually used to get the long sheets of paper that you'd see in school and actually trace out the full body. But COVID, we can't do that. So with COVID, I always tell my clients, just get a normal sheet of paper from your printer and then draw out your little human being. Like you don't need to draw out the full body. It's just fun sometimes to have like a visualization of this is actually me on paper. So just get a piece of paper, draw out a human. It can be a stick figure. It could be a bubble figure. It doesn't really matter. And then when you look at that, I want you to write out what your current story is. And this can be with words. This can be with colors. It can be with shapes. It can be with actual art. I'm not an artist, so I do like a lot of like just shading with color. I do a lot of shapes, or I just use words. And so by looking at your body, how do you feel when you look at that body? What do you feel in your headspace? What do you maybe feel in your throat? I know for me, a lot of it was in my throat that I couldn't speak my truth. I couldn't speak my fears. So maybe by your throat, you just write out like your fears, right? Write out words that really describe what's like stuck there. Write out what's going on in your heart space. Maybe if you have been diagnosed with a condition, you can like show like where in your body that is where your energy is going. Like I just keep thinking about my fibroid. I just keep thinking about my sperm quality, right? Like draw something that represents like the frustration, the anger, whatever it might be. Like it might just be a black circle there with lots of scribbles in it. It might be words, whatever it might be, but map out your current state. Because the thing is we can't heal the body unless if we know our current state. We can't change what we don't know. So we want to create this visualization so that we can really start to acknowledge, this is how I'm feeling. And you'll be amazed that once you start this process, things are going to come out of you. If you really like give it your all, things are going to come out of you that you didn't even think about, or that you didn't even know, or that you weren't really acknowledging because it was deep within you, right? So this is not for anybody else but you. So write it all out. And then once you do that, you may want to just sit with that for a bit. You may want to like really look at that. You may want to add more. Like this might be something that you just do and then you move on to the next step, or this might be something that you do and then you're like, I need to sit with this for 48 hours. I need to like really think about, holy, this is what I'm feeling. Like, this doesn't feel good. Like, no wonder why I'm stressed out. No wonder why I feel disempowered. Like, look at what I'm feeling, but we have to acknowledge that state. And then from there, once you're ready to move on to step 2, I always say to redraw out another human being. When you draw out this new person, write what you want to feel. Write what you want to see. This can be writing affirmations. Maybe you write like a visualization practice by your person. Maybe you draw a little sperm that are happy and moving. Maybe you draw like a uterus that's just like no blockages. Like whatever it is that you want to feel or see in your body, draw that. And it might be just colors. Like I know that I did this once and I drew like a sunshine in my heart space, right? Like I just wanted to feel joy, right? And so draw what you want to see. Okay. And then once you draw what you want to feel, what you want to see, even write out like what your outcome might be. It might be, I am ready and my body is healed, right? Like write out whatever really resonates with you. And then once you have that, look at your old picture and do something with it. I always like to either draw like a big X through it. I'm also a big fan of burning stuff. So I'll take it out to my fire pit and burn it because that's my old story. That's no longer my identity. That was how I was feeling. I acknowledged it. I know it was there. I know that was part of my story, but I'm choosing now to feel differently. And then I choose to like remember this state. So whenever I start to gravitate back into that old thinking pattern or that old state or that old sense of, well, this is what I've been diagnosed with, I can remind myself of like, no, that was the older version of me. This is the newer version with me, right? And the beautiful thing is that when we have something visual to look at, it really does help ground us into believing that that is possible. And then we can layer that with different practices to really enhance that process. So this is where, maybe it's a visualization practice. Maybe it's doing heart math techniques to really like connect with that space and create that healing vibration in the body. It might be breathing techniques. Part of my training that I took was a mental health unit. And when we talked about a technique that I love and I use all the time, which is called 5-4-3-2-1. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, close your eyes, take some breaths to center yourself, and then open your eyes, list just in your head, list the first 5 things that you see in the room, right? It doesn't matter what it is, just list 5 things, close your eyes again, breathe in. What are the 4 things that you now hear in your surrounding? And then take another deep breath. Then it's like 3 things of what you can feel. And then 2 things of what you can smell. And then 1 thing of what you can taste, right? So it's like dropping into those senses. So we're turning off that emotional part of our brain and we're allowing the thought, the brain, the part of our brain that allows us to think, we allow that to kick in so that we can go, okay, so I was having a big emotional response to something, but now my logical brain is kicking in and I can remember that there's so much more to my story. So this is where breath work, movement, visualization, heart math, all of those things are everything that's in your soup pot. This is now when you get to utilize it so you can bring yourself back to that image that you drew of yourself.
Wow. That is an incredible exercise. And like you said, it could be done for anything in our life that we want to feel better about or more empowered about. And would you be willing to share maybe a story, maybe to some clients that maybe had some struggles and kind of what shifted, what happened with them?
Yeah, for sure. This is the beauty of my job. And this is probably why I do it now versus any other career I've had in the past, because I see magic every day. Like it is crazy. Some of the things that I see happen that seem impossible that become possible, right? Unexplained infertility. This is a big one for me because almost anyone that comes to me with unexplained infertility, it does take a bit because their mindset is really stuck in the fact that they don't have a specific diagnosis. So it does take a little bit more time if we're looking at like a linear timeline to shift that mindset. But there's always a moment where their mindset shifts and then all of a sudden they become pregnant. Every person that I've had that's had unexplained infertility has gotten pregnant. That is one claim I could definitely make, besides current clients that I'm just working with now that just came to me. But any past clients that have come to me with unexplained have gotten pregnant. One of my biggest success stories that I love sharing with people because it's so incredibly helpful is I had a woman come to me with a polyp that was the size of her palm. So this was a growth that was happening in her ovary. And she kept having miscarriages. And so when they found this in the ultrasound, they're like, this is probably what's causing the miscarriages because there's this growth. And so they're like, we have to schedule you for surgery. And so she came to me. We worked on creating a strong visualization practice, a meditation practice. And then I did other healing techniques like Reiki with her to really see if we could shift some things. But honestly, I think it was really the mindset stuff that really like anchored the process because that was her to do for the weeks that she was going away with it. And within a month, that polyp was completely gone. And the crazy thing is that she's a nurse. So she's very much in the conventional medicine point of view, but she was like, you know what? I'm willing to try anything. Let's see if we can make magic happen. And she now has a little one as well. It was like a few weeks after her next ultrasound to book the surgery when they noticed that the polyp was gone, she got pregnant and she has a little boy now. And so like, these are the things that can happen when we tap into that wisdom of the mind, when we can start to really listen to the language of our body. And, Reiki worked for her of what we were doing, but that's also because Reiki works on calming the nervous system. It's about, really getting us into a relaxed state, getting us out of that ucky stress state. So it's not about like some special healing technique as much as it is that we tapped into what her body needed. Her body was stressed. We brought relaxation in. She walked away with a tool that made her feel empowered and boom, magic happened. Like, it's powerful stuff.
Oh, I imagine it's so rewarding. And
it is.
There's nothing more rewarding than that, right? Helping to fulfill dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And, if it's all right, I want to share kind of just quickly something that I heard one of my instructors, a woman by the name of Marissa Peer, who does a lot of work on mindset. And she was kind of sharing a story about one of the women that she was working with that wasn't able to get pregnant. And when they did some of that kind of root cause kind of work, it was because when that woman was a teenager and she was sexually active, and of course the parents didn't know, and she was so worried about getting pregnant. So she gave a suggestion to her mind, I do not want to get pregnant, right? There was so much fear, kind of anchored in the body along with that thought, and the body remembered it. So it kind of made sure, right, later on, that wouldn't happen for her. What do you think about that, about kind of how those kind of specific thoughts impact our ability? And what, if anything, have you seen in your work?
Oh my gosh. What you just said, it totally resonates with me, because that's essentially a part of my story. Is that my mom had me when she was 16 years old, and my mom and father, they are still together. I don't know how after this many years. They started dating when they were 13, and I can't even imagine. But so yeah, she got pregnant when she was 16. And part of my healing journey, one of the things that I tried was going to see an energetic healer who did womb healing. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but you have womb in there. My womb is broken. I just need some love there. And so I went to go see her. And before we even got into the treatment, she was doing my intake, and I was telling my history because she was asking about my mom's past. And so when I was sharing that, my mom had me when she was 16. And then she said, you have ectopic pregnancies, and your mom had you when you're 16, which probably meant, first of all, there was a lot of fear for her during that time, which radiated into the womb space where you were. So you probably took on some of that stress, some of that worry about pregnancy, right? First of all. And the second is that when you were born to children. And it's not a knock against them, but you were born to people who were not equipped yet to become parents. And so you came out knowing, I need to survive, which is so true. If anyone knew me in my past life, I was a perfectionist. I had to excel at everything. I was rigid. And then look at my tubes. They were rigid as well. All I knew was survival mode. I just knew, keep pushing, keep going, result driven. Right. And so when she said that to me, it was like this aha moment of me going, oh my, that is my psychological barrier, without even knowing how that impacted me, because I had a really good childhood. My parents are amazing. And, my mom went to university, even though she had 2 babies and she was young, she still did everything that she wanted to do. But I was still caught up in this thing of that I needed to prove myself. I needed to survive. And if I look at my teen years or my early 20 years, there was so much fear of having a pregnancy before I was ready. There was so much fear around, conception, because I wanted to finish my degree. I wanted to have a career. I wanted to have a house. I wanted to have the right husband. I wanted everything to line up perfectly, because nothing lined up perfectly for my mom, and she had to fight for everything. And so that in itself, even when I had the house, the husband, everything, it didn't work out. It was because I was still clenching onto fear. Right. And so it's so funny that you share that story, because it's even though I wasn't that 16-year-old, I carried some of that 16-year-old trauma.
Oh my goodness. And in the work that I do, Kate, I do a lot of work of kind of going back to the root cause, right? As a coach, right, to help people get results, we kind of see what are some patterns that we perhaps can shift. And very often, clients will go to the first time they, had an emotion, or the first time they had a belief, a limiting belief, was during delivery or in the womb. And there's some stories about how that's even been validated with some of the parents, their parents, about what happened during the time of their pregnancy at that particular time, because the unconscious mind knows, and it records everything. It records everything, and it records how we feel. And so I'm so, so grateful to you for taking the time today to share this with us, because, of course, medicine, Western medicine is important. And, there are things that we can do, and there are other things that we can do to help ourselves, help our partners. And so how can people learn even more about you, your services, and how they can get the help that they need?
For sure. So you can check out my website. It's sherevival.com, but she is SHEE, So it's not the gender. It actually stands for sacred healing through empowerment and embodiment. So that's why there's 2 E's there. And revival is because that's what we're doing. We're reviving the body. We're bringing like a new source of empowerment and life back into the system. So yeah, sherevival.com. On there, either is women's health programs. There's also a fertility program as well. If there's any men that are watching this and you're looking at the website, it is very geared towards women, but there is ways to work with me one-on-one. The beautiful thing about working with me one-on-one as a couple is that you both get the stuff together, right? Like we'll do a yoga practice that really helps both of you, and you guys are coming together to do it. And that I think sometimes is so empowering. I had one couple that used to come to my public fertility yoga classes together. He was the only man in the class, but he was like, no, I'm here. This is a 2-partner thing. We're going to make this work. And so this is where like working with me one-on-one, we'll go through, regardless of whose body has been labeled, we'll call it labeled, because remember, it's a 40-40-20. We're going to work on how we can amplify both of you and how we can really create empowerment in that body and how we can find tools to embody it. So like I said, when you work with me privately, we do yoga therapy. So we will bring in movement practices, breath practices, mindset stuff. But then I always, as part of those packages too, is refer out to, where I think other modalities might be really helpful for you, of being able to enhance that and to learn about your body. Because that's really what we're doing. We're just learning about our body. We're learning how it wants to talk to us and how we can, talk back. So.
And I imagine, thank you, that empowerment also extends into other areas of our life, be it our career or our ability to contribute in other ways to the world. So thank you so much for the sacred work that you do in really uplifting and empowering people at times when they can be at their most vulnerable place. So thank you.
It's really like a gift that's coming to me more than I think I give to them. Sometimes I just feel there's just such a beautiful feeling of knowing, to see someone who is in that same state that you were, and then to see them kind of blossom into like a different like state of like, yes, I can do this. Yes, my body can do this. And then being able to feel that change and that shift. Not to go over too long here for you, but that's one of the magical things I think that I see when I work with clients in my group coaching program, is that, women can still have miscarriages while working with me, but they don't feel the same as they did with their previous miscarriage, where it's like the other one, they felt broken. This one, they're like, okay, that happened. So let's look at what we can do now. Like, right. And they feel so much more empowered. Like their story can completely be different. And then they always end up getting pregnant successfully, right? But I think it's because sometimes with the recurrent miscarriage is that their body has to see, it's almost like a test of like, okay, this happened again. Are we going to feel broken again? Are we going to give up? Or like, are we going to like keep pushing through? And these women, like, it always surprises me when they've had a failed IVF or they had a miscarriage and they're like, no, you know what? We know what we need to do. We know where the work has to be, and they're willing to do it. And then magic happens. Like, this is, I think, the beauty of it. Like this job is really, truly a gift to me because I just see so much magic every day. So.
Oh my goodness, Kate, you are a wonderful soul. And I'm so, so grateful that you've shared all of these tools, these insights, these stories. Like I said, hope is a very important thing. And when we can believe that something can help us, which I imagine our listeners got today, that it is possible, then we're willing to take those actions that are going to help us to get the results. So once again, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm always excited to share my story. So.